Hi, my name is Zach, I'm a Christian Druid, and welcome back to Reading the Bible as Mythology. Today I read Genesis chapters 3 and 4. It was kind of interesting going back over these chapters again. Chapter 3 is about Adam and Eve eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, and then God finding out about that, being like, "Hey, that's the one thing I told you not to do," and then kicks them out of the garden and puts a curse on the earth and makes it difficult to grow food and whatnot. And I think with this, one thing I've started to ask myself, right, since I'm reading it as mythology, is what questions or things was this? What questions was this trying to answer? What things were they trying to explain? And there's quite a few in just this one chapter. Quite a lot. So questions I think that it answers that people might have had was like, why is there evil? Why is life so difficult? Why do we have to work so hard to grow food? Why is pregnancy so awful? Why are snakes creepy? I think that's an interesting one to answer, because like I think people may have just been like, why are these things so freaking creepy? It's like, well, it's because a snake deceived the first humans into disobeying God. And then God cursed the snake, all the snakes apparently, not just because this one, not just the one, but he decided to do all the snakes, which I personally find kind of funny. And that's another thing too. It's interesting here, right? So there's an instance in this where God lies. Like, God just straight up lies. And especially reading this version, because I remember it's back in chapter 2 here somewhere, but God tells them, do not eat the fruit, right? And when you do, you will die on the same day, right? That's how this version puts it. You will die on the same day that you eat it. I know from previous readings that we go back and it says that Adam lives like 900 something years. So that's like it just straight up lied to them. Because he said you would die, but no, like they didn't die. Now, I know some people might try to, be apologists and be like, well, no, he didn't actually mean that they would die like literal deaths. It just meant like a metaphorical death and blah blah blah. And like, there's all kinds of ways that someone might try to spin that to say that God didn't lie, but if that's not what it meant, it shouldn't say that, right? And this Bible specifically advertises itself as plain, like uses plain terms, is supposed to be close to the original text, blah blah blah. So just taking that on face value, God lied. Like, that's just straight up what happens in this story. I don't even think that that's really necessarily a bad thing. Like, he tells them like, hey, don't eat it. Otherwise you're going to die. But they just become aware of like good and evil. Although for some reason, this version says good and bad. I don't know why they decide to remove the word evil. That seems like a weird choice to me. Lots of questions being answered there, I think, that people might have had. So anyway, yeah, and then we get into chapter 4. It's about Cain primarily. So obviously, Cain and there's Cain and Abel. So they're brothers. Cain is a farmer, and Abel is a shepherd, and they both bring sacrifices to God based on what it is that they produce. And God likes Abel's offering, but doesn't like Cain's offering. And so he kind of throws a hissy fit and gets angry, and God's like, "Why are you so angry?" It's like, "What's up with that, dude?" It's like you need to work on that. And like straight up, he just tells him like, "You need to work on your anger issues." Um, he doesn't quite say it like that, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing. But yeah, so he's like really mad that that God liked Abel's offering more than his, and so he takes him out in the field and murders him. And then, God comes out and he's like, "Where's your brother at?" And it's like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. Am I supposed to take care of my brother? Was it? Blah, blah. So yeah. And then, God's like, it's like, "All right, dude, you're gonna wander the earth. You're not gonna be able to grow anything. Like there's already a curse on the ground, but he's like specifically like, fuck you in particular. You're not going to be able to grow food." So yeah. But another thing with that, right? So Cain is just like, "No, please don't do this. I can't bear to, this punishment is too much to bear," because he says that, he says he'll be driven out of his presence, indicating that God has a presence just in one spot. So he's not like present throughout the entire earth, which makes sense with biblical studies stuff that I've done, because I have watched a lot of videos of biblical scholars like Dan McClellan and whatnot. But yeah, it talks about how apparently there's this idea that God ruled over a certain section of the earth, a certain people, I guess. But anyway, yeah, so he said he'd be driven out of his presence. And then he also is Cain is also afraid of other people killing him. They would know who he is, they would know what he'd done, and he was afraid that people would kill him, which means that there were other people on the earth. So either Adam and Eve had a lot of kids, right, or God had created other people. Either way, interesting to note. But yeah, so, and then, God puts the mark on Cain, saying don't worry, anyone who kills you, they'll be avenged, you'll be avenged sevenfold or something like that. And so there's some kind of mark that everyone would know, I guess, which was interesting. It's just, I guess, inherent knowledge that everyone would have. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, and then there's a section here that talks about the descendants of Cain. Talks about him going and he makes, I guess he founds the first city and builds a city and names it after his son, which is Enoch, which is interesting because the book of Enoch is not in this Bible, is not in our standard Bible. It is a book I do intend to get to, though. I've bought a Bible which has 120 books in it, so it's one of the biggest Bibles that there is. So that'll be very interesting to read all the other books that aren't included in our 66 book Protestant Bible. So yeah, and I will definitely show that off when I get it in the mail. But yeah, so it talks about the descendants of Cain, and then it kind of jumps back to Adam and Eve's children. Yeah, apparently had a son to replace Abel, or yeah, because Abel was killed. So yeah, I don't know. Some of this stuff, it's all very interesting to read this now with the lens that it's not all literal, historical, factual truth. Um, but yeah, I think they in this with in this section about the descendants of Cain, it talks about certain people being like certain sons. Like there are certain lines that like certain people came from, where like it's like apparently all musicians descend from these people, and uh, um, yeah. And then there's Tubal Cain, which is a character I don't think we really talk about too terrible much in uh, within Christianity. But yeah, Tubal Cain, who apparently was like a maker of tools and such, um, made them out of bronze and iron. So, but yeah, and then they mention, I don't quite understand. They mention the sister of Tubal Cain was Nama, or however you pronounce that. I don't know if that really comes back into place. They mention a name. I don't know. I suppose I'll have to Google that name and see if it comes up in any other biblical texts and whatnot. But yeah, they kind of mention Tubal Cain's sister, and then she's never brought up again. She's like her name is this Nama, I think. Naama. Don't know. It's two A's in there for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. I found that interesting that they just kind of mention that, and then it's like, okay, moving on. So I'm going to assume that there's probably some stories written about her. I believe I heard something like on TikTok the other day that like there's more to like Tubal Cain in like one of the other texts and whatnot that isn't in the Bible. So I'm assuming she's probably in those in that book, wherever book it was. I think it may have been the Book of Enoch. I can't quite remember. Probably is the Book of Enoch. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I think it answers a lot of questions that people might have had. Explains things. Obviously not truthfully, but just people coming up with answers for questions that they didn't know the answers to. So, yeah, I hope that this ranty video was entertaining. I don't really know what I'm doing with this. I feel like as I go, maybe I'll have more collected, cohesive thoughts, but for now, really, this is just kind of serving as a personal journal for myself, I guess, as I read through the Bible. So anyway, thanks for watching.